Yes, Ness, quickly, quickly! Look, fluids! This man is dehydrated. He's going into shock. Come on, fluids, quickly, now, pass them! Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Yes, nurse. Don't worry, I'll see to you later. You'll be fine, don't worry. My advice is take 2 of these and then wash it down with another one of these and you'll be right as rain, because it's making me feel better already. Hey folks, Dr. Kilty is in the house doing his rounds, because that means that visiting hours are definitely over. How are you all? I'm doing very well. Cheers, y'all. Don't worry, it's purely medicinal. I was discussing Halloween 2 in only the very previous video. The film that this guy goes on a rampage in Haddonfield General Hospital, and I was saying just how great that location is for a stalk and slash chillathon. The thrills and inevitable spills of a hospital just lends itself to those dark corridors, the weird blinking lights, the heart monitors, patients in secluded rooms, sexy nurses. It's a great setting. And only a year after Halloween 2 came out, which would be 1981, you got this Canadian slasher, sort of slasher pick, Visiting Hours, in 1982. Now this was a Canadian movie made in Montreal with money from the huge Canadian tax incentive and cash injection to what would be literally the Hollywood of the North. Montreal became a filmmaking mecca during the late 70s and into the early 80s. And people like producers Pierre David and Victor Solnicki gave directors and filmmakers like David Cronenberg a real boost, a real leg up in the industry, and promoted their status and created such avant-garde classics as The Brood and Scanners, and this movie as well. So Canada put itself on the map, certainly within a genre perspective. So, Visiting Hours from 1982. It's a notorious movie, and its infamy is a little bit sort of unfounded. In the UK, you talk about this movie and people go, oh, it was banned. It was never banned. It was never banned. It was not part of the DPP full list of banned movies. However, it was taken in for questioning. And because of its misogyny, its violence against women, and protracted scenes of death and photographing the victims, we'll come on to all of this, of course, in the due course of the plot. But it was never outright banned. But it did appear on some lists, and the constabulary, in their overzealous nature during this particular period, the video nasty craze, would go into video libraries, and it was routinely took off shelves, although you would find it be returned pretty soon afterwards, because it even got shown on TV as well. In the late 80s and early 90s, it was shown on UK terrestrial TV. So hey, come on. The film is not that nasty. It's not. It's the themes which it covers, which are troublesome, shall we say. And what themes are they, Kilt-Man? Well, what we have here is Oscar-winning Lee Grant. Lee Grant, who was also in Damien Omen 2, but she got the Oscar for her support performance in the film Shampoo. She plays a very hard-hitting, very go-for-the-throat TV journalist, Deborah Balin, her name is, and we open up upon her actually haranguing and harassing the prosecuting attorneys on a TV show who have gone against a woman in a famous, in this particular story, a famous case of a woman fighting back against her abusive partner, and she kills him. So Deborah Lee Grant is defending her and saying the law is wrong, how you're going against what a woman's right is to defend herself in times of stress and agony and abuse, anyway, this incurs the wrath of Michael Ironside. Yes, I said Michael Ironside. Scanners himself, Darryl Revick, Extreme Prejudice, V, Starship Troopers, The Machinist, Top Gun, come on now, Michael Ironside, Total Recall, See you at the party, Richter! And he plays what we think is some kind of technician at the TV studio. And he overhears this TV show being recorded. And you can see he has a stress ball in his hand and he's crunching that down. He yanks the plug from the TV which he's watching it on while it's being recorded in the studio just out of the window there. He is our nasty, aggressive slasher of the pick. An abuser of women, a total and utter tyrant when it comes to his own moral standing, because as it transpires he's written numerous letters to counsellors, to priests, to whoever. He's sexist, he's racist, he's homophobic, he hates everybody, put it that way. But he also has a switchblade, and he quite clearly has a penchant for photographing his victims. So we see in his lair, which is just a very rather spacious apartment, with an old starlet runs this apartment block, this house, this tenement building. She's downstairs and she wants to bring him in to watch her old movies are being repeated on TV. But Michael Ironside doesn't really want to know, and he goes up to his room and we see flick knife. We have pictures of all his victims. He's building a death's head out of pictures, black and white pictures of close-ups of his victims in agony, paroxysms of agony. And he despises Deborah Baglin, Lee Grant, for her obviously outspoken views on male dominance over the female. So he targets her. Right after this broadcast, he's gone to her house. So even though the film is set primarily in a hospital, we actually have a nice variance. We have 2 extended home invasion sequences as well. I'll come on to all this. He attacks her in her house. He has killed her maid and attacks her. She's injured, slashed across the arm, slashed across the chest, I think, and but manages to fight him off. She gets into a dumb waiter, which he manages to haul up and then slash the rope on, causing her to tumble down, causing fractures. So she ends up at the hospital. And because she hasn't died, his campaign of vengeance for some perceived, a grievance that he has with her, like, because of her views, he then spends the rest of the movie going after her in the hospital, which will take the form of getting disguised as surgeons, as doctors, as paramedics, as people delivering flowers. He'll do all sorts to get in there. And because he can't ever get to her until the final stretch of the movie, he will kill other people as well and then make his escape. But in the meantime, Deborah Baglin, the Lee Grant character, will gain the confidence and the trust of one of the nurses there, played by Linda Purl, and I forget the character's name, but she's a single mum and a very dedicated nurse, but she loves her kids. She's working long hours, and after his first foray into there, Colt Hawker, I think his name is, the Michael Ironside psychopath, Colt Hawker, sounds like the name of a Stallone character from the 80s movies. And he overhears her on the phone at reception saying, yes, we have her here, and she's obviously talking to a friend, and yeah, I hope they get the bastard that did this to her. They should put him in a cage and feed him raw meat. Well, clearly now she has now established herself as being the kind of person that Cole Hawker hates as well. So he then targets her and victimises her. He lies in wait at the house. He takes pictures of her and her kids. He puts them into this death's head skull that he's creating, this death mask of photographs of victims. So the film goes on like this. William Shatner is in here as well, though what the hell he's doing here, God only knows. But you can never have too much Shat. You can only have too little Shat. And, it's... what the hell he's doing in this movie is beyond any kind of natural sort of narrative acceptance of the script, because he serves no purpose whatsoever. He plays the TV boss for Deborah's show, and he's also obviously a love interest for her. But William Shatner only made this film like in 2 days, and he literally just is in the TV studio saying we can't put that on air, and blah blah blah. How about wine later? Dinner and wine. I'll walk home, thanks very much. He then visits her in the hospital a couple of times, and while she's expressing her fear that she thinks the killer, the attacker, has got in the hospital, he's around here somewhere, he knows I'm here, he's coming after me again. And William Shatner, as this TV boss, he's just eating ice cream. He's going, listen, you're well protected here. There's policemen on every door. There's one outside your room right now. And you're perfectly fine. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. And all of this sort of stuff. And he's just wolfing ice cream down. He doesn't give a shit. He only appears in the movie just to talk to her by her bedside and to follow the police to a red herring and then discover, oh my god, he's really back at the hospital, oh no. But he won't do anything at all. But it's great that he's there, and it's also, it's a name that you've got in there. William Shatner is in this. Apparently, he was actually in Denver at the time of this film going into production, and he was playing leading man in I'm not sure what it was, because I looked on IMDb, and all he'd done before this in that year, it was a prolific year for him. He'd done episodes of Police Squad. He would go after this to doing Star Trek 2 and Airplane 2 as well, so it was a busy year for him. But I think Pierre David said that we tracked him down to Denver and he's playing a leading man in something or other. Maybe it's a stage production, I don't know. And we just said, do you fancy coming to Montreal? Don't forget, William Shatner is a Montreal-born native anyway. He's Canadian. He's a Canuck. And he said, yeah, I'll come up there. Yeah, I'll do it. So he appears, and it's one of the things about the film which is great and yet also goes absolutely nowhere. This is a great movie, folks. I really do enjoy it. And it plays havoc with the conventions of the slasher pick. By the way, I'm not playing its soundtrack. You know, I always review a movie and try to play its soundtrack. The soundtrack to this movie is by Jonathan Goldsmith. No relation to Jerry Goldsmith. Jonathan Goldsmith is a Canadian film and TV composer. And his score for it, which I cannot get hold of, is it's just a piano-led sort of lots of stingers and a bit of a jazzy feel to it. It's not that particularly grand or memorable, but I can't get it. So I'm playing 10 to Midnight by Robert O. Ragland. 10 to Midnight was from the same sort of era, and it was Charles Bronson against the serial killer again. So I thought I'd play along with that sort of thing. Oh, thank you, Nurse. Glad you're still here. But yeah, this is Michael Ironside's movie, where the film, which is written by a guy called Brian Taggart, directed by Jean-Claude Lord, with a fair bit of visual flourish and a nice bit of directorial dexterity as well. It's suspenseful, it has some great set pieces in it, and it's a longer than usual film, sort of like 105 minutes, where slashers of the period are normally like 90 minutes, if that. This film does play around with the conventions. It is a slasher film in that the guy carries a flick knife, a switchblade, and he does practice humongous misogyny against women. It also comes on the back of the likes of Maniac and, well, what would be at this sort of time as well, Lucio Fulci's The New York Ripper, which is the absolute nth degree in slasher horror picks, violence against women. That is the absolute, you know, the extent to which they can go. And this film is nowhere near as explicit. There's no nudity, but there is sexual violence in it, and it is a very sleazy sort of film as well. It also conjures up ideas of nightmares and damaged brain as well. It's that kind of thing. The film spends a humongous amount of time with Michael Ironside, and that's a good thing because he's a bloody good actor. Doesn't say a great deal in the movie, and I think a mistake is that he doesn't say things in certain scenes. I'll come on to that. But throughout the course of the film, you'll see him amassing his weaponry and his tactics of how to get into the hospital each successive time, and he's quite, you know, ingenious the way he does it. And but you'll have flashbacks to his formative years. He obviously grew up in an abusive family environment. His father was a drunk. His father tries to get him to drink. In a very disturbing scene, he's lying on top of his son, out on the grass in the garden. He's pouring bottles of beer down his son's throat. But in a later flashback, we see that he makes sexual advances. This is the father against the mother, rips her blouse, and clearly tries to rape her in front of his son, but the mother retaliates with a pan of boiling fat, throws it in his face. We're not sure what happens to the mother. I don't know. I think the film could be a bit clearer on this, because we do see that Michael Ironside's character does visit clearly his father in an old folks home, and he has a burned, scarred face, and he sits with his dad watching TV. And when a nurse comes in and he discovers there's a picture of his mother on the sideboard, he says, "Where'd this picture come from?" In a rare moment of dialogue for him. "Who put this here?" "Oh, I found it in the wardrobe. I thought I'd put it on there. Thought he'd like that." "Don't put it out there again. Put it in a drawer." And so he doesn't want the memory of his mother to be there. But whether he's killed the mother, well, we don't know, or his mother was incarcerated because of her fight back against an abusive parent. See, this is the theme of the movie. Lee Grant's character, this TV journo with the incisive, staunchly feminist angle, she's defending women's rights, and clearly Michael Ironside's character doesn't like that, but he witnesses mother fighting back against an abusive father and husband. So why doesn't he side with that? Where's the grievance? Don't quite get. You can see why his violence is there, but is his violence born out against women because of what he witnessed his mother do against his father, even though his father was clearly in the wrong and was abusing him as well? So it's kind of, it's almost like the film should be tightened a bit more clearer in its narrative than that. But you get the gist. He's a troubled kid, and he's grown up even more troubled. There is a sequence where he massages his dad's back, and I genuinely thought he was going to kill his father in that sequence. And I'm kind of surprised that it didn't play out that way. So he obviously has love for his father. He's looking after his father when all's said and done. But he is a sexual predator. You see him with it. He's very receding anyway. He always was, Michael Ironside. But even with his slick back, receding strands, and that jutting, petulant grimace that he does, like that, which you see in Scanners a lot when he's going through the full Scanner transformation thing. And in lots of movies, he does this sort of thing. When I do it, it looks stupid. When he does it, it looks really intimidating. And he has that kind of weird, pulsating vein on his temple, which is, Scanners just seems to have embellished that completely. Whether it was there before Scanners, and I thought, well, I like that, I'll keep that, because it's in every other movie afterwards, and especially in this one. And he wears a leather look, sort of vinyl, sleeveless, so very, very bad fashion. But he goes out on the streets and he will pick up women, and one woman in particular that he picks up in a scene very reminiscent of what Lucio Fulci would do in New York Ripper with the ever delectable Daniela Doria, or Daniela Cormio, who I've spoken to, and I did a big video tribute to her, in New York Ripper's most infamous scene where she's completely naked on the bed and her death is being recorded, and the razor blade, he slices her nipple, her abdomen, and a moving eyeball, and just makes a right mess of her. Truly horrific. And well, this has a very similar sequence where he's abusive in a very Max Cady sort of way from the remake of Cape Fear. It brings in shades of Rob De Niro abusing the woman he's picked up, knowing he can get to Nick Nolte because of it, and he bites her cheek. Well, he will bite her, punch her, abuse her, strip her off with this knife, and tease her body with it as well. Although there's no nudity there, it's a very grueling sequence without a doubt. And this woman survives, and with her friends goes. This is where the film sort of lets itself down. We spend so much time with Michael Ironside's character learning about his background, watching his tactics to get into the hospital and do his subsequent attacks and kill sprees, and try to get to Deborah Balin, his ultimate target. And then, of course, the nurse as well, who's incurred his hatred. So he goes to her house and he plagues her children, he intimidates her, takes pictures of her as well. He attacks her in the house, and stabs her in the guts, but she survives. It in a great nightmarish sequence again. Sorry, folks, yeah, spoilers, but you've probably all seen it. This is an old movie, this now. But he lets this girl go, the one he's been abusing on the bed with the blade and all that, and obviously sexually abused her, and raped her. he comes back to his apartment and he finds that they've dubbed pervert, sicko, bastard all over his walls. They've ripped up his trashed apartment completely, and they've took from his death's head that he's created of all the collage of photographs. They've took the pictures of the nurse and of Deborah, the TV show host. She's took them because what she's done, she's gone to the nurse because she's met the nurse. Linda Purl, playing the nurse, also moonlights as a sort of counsellor therapist for abused women. So the whole film is about abused women and their retribution and their rights, their fight back, albeit in an exploitational point of view. So she's met her, and when she's gone back to the apartment, realised he's took pictures of the girl that was giving me therapy and I was giving abuse back to, but she's actually really good. There's her picture, and there's that TV show she's took, because they're the eyes of this death's head mask. She's took them and gone to see the nurse. Look, I think you could be in trouble. I think I've met the guy. So foolishly, he's let her survive, but he comes back to the apartment and realises, shit, she's took the two eyes, Deborah and the nurse. Right, I've got to up my campaign now. I've got to get in the hospital because they're going to come calling for me, because clearly they know and they realise I am this guy, because this woman with her friends have defaced and vandalised his apartment and putting the frighteners on him. We know who you are. You're going to go down. So now he's got to really up his game. And in the film's most graphic sequence, he belts up his arm, straps it off, has some beer, loads and loads of painkillers, and then brings his arm down, his forearm, smashes the bottle, and embeds broken glass in his arm to get himself called into the hospital. Because in the meantime, the girl that he abused has shown the pictures. He's now he's gone to the house of the nurse, and she's gone back there. She can't get the police, who are all over the hospital. They're wall to wall in the hospital because they know there's been attacks there trying to get to the TV show host and all that, who's still relaxing in one of many rooms that she goes into. They move around quite a lot, which causes our psycho no end of problems. He goes into the wrong room and it should be you, and he's cut the air hose. Oh, it's someone else. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll still photograph you dying. Oh, there's another guy that I thought was going to be you. I'll kill him as well. She's got lots of this going on. So all his failed attempts to kill her, he keeps having to go back in a different disguise. It's very repetitive in that respect. But it's still exciting though, once you buy into this. But the nurse realises, right, you've shown me the pictures. He's been watching me. He's the killer. She phones her house, gets no answer, just hears breathing. He's there, tries to alert all the cops who are there, and the cops don't want to know. So she's just in a panic. She drives off there herself. So you have another, like the sort of first act of the movie is the TV show host Lee Grant going into her house, finding wreckage and finding her bed's been set loose, windows open, lots of great stinger moments. We know what's going to happen. He's in there, and then he suddenly appears, and he's topless, or could even be nude, I don't know. And he's got all bangles and beads and earrings on him. What's going on there? And he attacks her, but she survives the whole dumbwaiter thing. But he's killed her servant there, her maid. And then you get this entire sequence where the nurse goes back to her house, finds the kids are okay, is looking round, and what's going on? He's definitely been here, because I know. And then she's about to phone up and call for help, and he suddenly appears from under the settee and stabs her right in the guts, and then photographs her and kicks her while she's in agony, but she doesn't die. But what that's done in a great set piece, it's got her taken to the hospital. He's then realised, shit, people are on to me, but I've got to get in the hospital. So he does his deed with the broken bottle. In the meantime, the girl that he'd attacked is notified William Shatner and the police, who all storm with a massive SWAT team, helicopters, snipers on different roofs, and they all move up. It's massive overkill, really. But they storm into his apartment, but he's not there. And then that fading TV starlet or movie starlet from downstairs says, "Why can't you boys leave him alone? He's already hurt himself. He's gone to hospital." And Shatner realises he's got himself taken to hospital. Shit, So he's back there. Cue the entire final act, which is pure Halloween 2. Lee Grant will come face to face with her aggressor again. She will go on the run throughout the corridors and the basements and the elevators of the hospital, which is now seemingly deserted, even though people are getting rushed in all the time, including the killer and the nurse that he slashed in the stomach. So there's lots going on, but on different floors. She ends up in the basement, he's pursuing her there. She's got her arm in a cast, and he's got an injured arm, so the two of them are like hobbling around after each other. And it's, you know, a game of cat and mouse. In the end, she will confront him and she'll lure him into a trap behind these curtains. He'll pull these curtains down in the radiotherapy trauma ward, whatever it is. I know you're in there. And then she'll stab him through the curtain with his own knife, because in a great moment where he attacks her in the lift doors just shut as he comes through with the knife. Very similar to Halloween 2 again. And he's trying to whack it through. She gets a high heel off her foot and starts whacking his hand with it and gets the knife. So that's how she arms herself, and she will stab him. And it's a great twist on the whole thing that women are the victims and women should fight back. That is the theme of the movie, albeit shot through with exploitation and a real adherence to the psycho tendencies of this guy, who's clearly very intelligent. Clearly has a real knack for disguises and blending in with crowds. And yet where it goes wrong is in many moments where he's doing his first sort of abortive sorties into the hospital to try and kill her. He's got flowers or whatever, he's wearing like a porter's uniform. People, we just take Mr. So-and-so back to his room. Oh, yeah, do it now. Oh, right, yeah. And then this guy will start talking to him in the wheelchair. But you think he would just start talking to try and blend in, instead of being so overtly weird and being silent and just, right, you're in your room now, ta-ra. And lots of these rooms where all the patients are connect to other rooms, which I think is a bit bizarre. They filmed this partially in a real Vietnam wartime veterans hospital in Montreal. So you've got genuine trauma wards, you've got proper hospital wards and corridors and nurses, but they filmed from like late evening till dawn. But you've got those real hospital corridors and ambulances and stuff are really there. But they also built a huge mock-up as well, and which looks great. I mean, you wouldn't know. The look of the hospital is very, very good. I love the lighting for this movie. There's no shadows in it whatsoever. This is not Halloween. Michael Ironside, Michael Myers, does not appear out of the shadows. He might suddenly appear from under a settee or from behind a door or in a mirror behind somebody, but there are no shadows. Everything's brightly lit, and it adds a nice dimension to it as well, that things are so clear and so obvious. But it takes it down from that horror slasher genre and puts it into the thriller mold from a purely visual aesthetic. Plus the fact that you know so much about the killer, and the film centres so much around him. He has the lion's share of screen time in the movie. That he's not like Jason Voorhees, he's not like Michael Myers, he's not just this shapeless, this shadowy creature which suddenly appears, like supernatural ability. He is just a man. And as critics at the time did hail Michael Ironside as an overweight Jack Nicholson, he does look like Jack Nicholson, and he does not disguise the fact he's got a bit of a paunch going on as well. So, and he's receding, so he's a normal guy, albeit with a driven, pathological hatred of women. And of course, he gets his comeuppance at the end, and her endorsement of women fighting back is completely borne out. So the film does have a message, albeit veiled in this time. When it came out, films like Bill Lustig's Maniac had, campaigners for blocks outside each cinema showing, campaigning against this movie, its hatred of women. And yet it shares a lot of similar values with Maniac, where Maniac dwelt on Joe Spinell's Maniac character. It's told mainly from his point of view. He's the star of the film. Michael Ironside is the star of this movie as well. Lee Grant acquits herself pretty well, but as I say, the last act, she is just left to running around and screaming and retreating in fear, reacting to things. But her initial characterization is pretty good. She nails it right. She has got this committed devotion to fighting against bureaucracy and conservative right-wing sort of measures, and a less than appreciative judicial system towards women who do fight back. And then she becomes the victim herself. But that's a neat twist. It gives her the ability to fight back, to then empower herself and win the day. William Shatner, as I say, is great that he's there. As much ice cream as he can throw down his neck. But it's him that realises, I mean, the one great moment is that he realises he's in hospital. The whole SWAT team and the police have all been drawn out. It's a great moment. It's a great slight, a visual slight that the psycho's done. I'll lure them all out and I'll get myself in there. They're looking for me, but they're not going to look in the hospital of a victim who's been brought in. In a weird sequence which I don't quite understand, he seems to, now I say seems to because it could be taken either way, he seems to get into the operating theatre where Lee Grant's character is. She's about to have her operation and she's under drugs and anaesthetic, and she's watching. And we have seen him in the room where they scrub up and all that, and he puts on. We don't know if he's killed the surgeon who's in there. A lot of medical staff seem to get hurt, and it seems to get forgotten about as well. Our main nurse, Linda Purl, her friend stumbles upon a victim in the bed and it gets gut stabbed, and then she's completely airbrushed out of it. Like, the police talk about the woman who was in that, the victim who got photographed and had her air hose cut. They talk about her, but the nurse only gets a scant mention. You think, oh, hang on, that's quite... He killed the nurse as well. He also kills another, person out there as well. He pushes a policeman through a big window, possibly killing him. We don't know. He gets another guard and crunches his head as well. So, other people are getting wasted left, right, and centre, but they don't seem to talk about them so much. But so I don't know where I was going with that. I was going somewhere, but his tactics are pretty good. Although it is kind of ludicrous that he can keep getting in there and he can cause so much havoc and then still manage to get out. He's got his van, he can put on different sorts of disguises on the van. Oh, I deliver flowers, and all this. He can get in through some power outlet across the car block. He can get in through there and go through the subterranean warrens and get in there and get dressed up as another kind of citizen. I know where it was going. The operating theatre, of course. Because she sees him in there and he seems to be messing about with the air supply, the nitrogen and the oxygen, and she's like watching, she's going under, but she's like trying to alert everyone that he's there, that the killer is there. I don't know. And then, of course, you kind of see him walk off, and in a shot, which is a bit bizarre, he seems to have left dog tags hanging from a monitor. Well, did she dream all this, or was that genuinely taking place? The film doesn't really make that clear, and there's a lot of such things in this movie. I love it. I think it's great. It's a great showcase for Michael Ironside's icy, determined, convicted performance. Lee Grant, as I say, is good until she's relegated to just screaming hysterics and running about. William Shatner is just superlative. Linda Purl is great. Linda Purl, by the way, who's aged spectacularly well. She's only young in the movie, but God, even now she looks phenomenal. Very beautiful woman. And there's a sequence where you have a police inspector. When William Shatner and the police inspector and the SWAT team get into the apartment and discover all the paraphernalia of a psychopath and this death's head that's there, and they realise the photos came from the eyes there, so that's why we knew. And they realise that he's back at the hospital. Shit, we're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Damn it! The guy playing the police inspector looks like Ricardo Montalban, but without the Khan wig. So Ricardo Montalban, who plays Khan in Star Trek 2, opposite William Shatner, of course, has curly grey hair. This inspector has curly grey hair, nice and tight. And there's a shot of the two of them together, and you've got what looks like Khan, Ricardo Montalban, and Kirk, Bill Shatner together in the same frame, and you go, well, I did it, but it's a great image, because straight after this, William Shatner would go into making Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. As I say, Shatner's just wasted in this. It's just he's done it as a favour to get his name up there. I know that Pierre David, they wanted to change the name from it, because originally it was just called Fright. So visiting hours makes a bit more of an impact on it. But they wanted to change the script, change this, bring in different actors. But he said no. And they were going to give him tons and tons of funding. These were different distributors, tons of funding. And he said no. This is the film I want to make. I'm happy with it. I'll make the film I want to make without your money. Then I'm going to show you the film, and if you like it, then you can help distribute it with your money. But I want to make the film my way, with no intrusion from any other suits and studios. If you want to fund it, great, but we do it my way. And that's what I like about him. They had that sort of direct vision, even back in the late 70s, early 80s. He had that bravery to go up against big studios, to make his film his way. I will say that the film could be tightened and made a bit clearer as to what happened to the killer's mother. Did she die? Did he kill her? What happened? Did the father kill her? We don't ever know. And he's got away with too much. He really couldn't have. We see initially in his apartment, he has walls of letters that he's had framed, that he sent to various dignitaries and authorities, really stamping his totally nihilistic viewpoint and his vitriol and hatred. And a lot more could be made of that. This guy would have been flagged up as a complete and utter weirdo and danger, a loose cannon, a person of great interest, way before the SWAT team make their happenstance arrival in his apartment. But in the annals of psychos, he does cut a very unusual and avant-garde figure amongst all the other psychos and killers and shapes and entities and knife-wielding maniacs. He is a bastard, but he's great at it. Michael Ironside is just glorious in this movie. It's his film, without a doubt. Anyone who thinks this film was banned, yeah, I've corrected that assumption there. The film isn't that gory. There's a little bit of blood, but it certainly isn't much. He photographs his victims peeping Tom style, in their paroxysms of agony, which is disturbing, certainly. His own grievous wound to his arm with the broken bottle is pretty nasty, certainly. But violence-wise, it's actually quite tame, bizarrely enough. I like the way the film juxtaposes the hospital setting with the two home invasion sequences, which are grueling and do seem to fit more with the likes of Halloween and Haddonfield rampages and many other, like Rosemary's Killer and The Prowler, all that sort of film, which were so proliferated throughout this period. This film takes all those ideas on board, but does its own thing. It takes the conventions and it plays about with them. It's brightly lit. We know the killer inside out. We know his tactics. We know his fallibilities. We get to know him far too well, I suppose, as compared to the other psycho movies of the time. It's not that gory. It doesn't rely on makeup effects, but it still has great suspense, and home invasions with lots of false alarms, red herrings and stingers are great, and they really do play on that. There's a knife through a door, there's all that sort of stuff. The whole dumbwaiter thing, where he discovers that she's gone down in the dumbwaiter, and he begins to haul her back up like that, and she's trying to pull the rope so she can go back down. What really would have worked, Halloween H2O did this. Halloween H2O, which is a poor movie, and I reviewed it and covered it with The Mask as well. That does the same thing with the dumbwaiter, but he pulls it. It would have been great to have had him pull her up to try and slice her, but he actually holds it and then goes, okay, I'm going to cut this. So down it goes, it plummets down, and a stunt double will tumble out, breaking bones in the process and discovering the body of the maid. But it's nicely done. I like that entire sequence with a great big parrot as well, which has been set loose in the house. It's just an unusual slant on the whole thing, and I like it. I think it works pretty well. As I say, the music is not that noteworthy, really, no pun intended, but it serves its purpose. Pianos and a bit of jangliness and a few stingerisms taking place, but really there's no memorable theme to this. So, anyway, folks, visiting hours, it's definitely worth a visit, or maybe paying, a revisit to. I certainly enjoyed it again after many years of not seeing it. I remember when I first caught it, I was immensely disappointed because it was touted as being a gory slasher-thon. Lots of kills. There are kills, but they're mostly not gory. It's violence, but it's not that shockingly violent. It's the theme and the protracted nature of some abusive sequences in it, which make it troublesome and disturbing. So, by the way, here's the great main theme to 10 to Midnight. Nothing to do with visiting hours. Which is another film which I might cover at some point. Charles Bronson. And a great serial killer as well. And quite an audacious part for the guy that plays him, whose name I've forgotten now. It's Brian something. Because he's nude a lot of the time in the movie. But Charles Bronson has to break the law to take this guy down. And again, it's one of these films where, like Visiting Hours, the law, the judiciary is taken into account, and they don't do the right thing. So we've got to take the law into our hands. Films of the early 80s were rife with this, of course. Oh, Death Wish Saga, which is from the 70s. Brilliant, this. It's pure 80s, but it's got that real zing to it. Visiting Hours is slick and very it does seem visually and directorially from the 80s. It's got more of a stamp, more of a modern stamp on it, and yet its themes are hugely from the 70s. And it has that grungy sort of thematic quality to it. That storyline is nasty. It's definitely from a different era. Nowadays, this sort of film does not get made. Well, not so much. They exist, but not so much. So it's a nice throwback, retaliatory, vision to the typical misogynistic slash and hackathon. Women getting carved up, women fighting back the final woman. This has that, but it also has a bit more of a message, a bit more of a motive behind it. This is still a better score than what you get in Visiting Hours, I will say that. Anyway, folks, look, I have wasted too much time when I should be out on the wards doing my rounds. Dr. Kilt-Man must take the medicine trolley around, and nurse, I'll see you in room 12 again. Yes. Because my pelvis is playing up again. It might need some attention. Folks, I have been and always shall be Kilt-Man, and I always shall be doing the rounds. Please, in the meantime and this darkly medicinal in-between time, take it easy, be happy, be healthy, keep it kilted, keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all in the X-ray department.